Hi guys, this is Monte Cristo with ggChronicle.com, and I'm here with Dignitas Scarra, who just unfortunately lost in the losers bracket finals. Do you have anything to say about those last couple games? I know you in game 2 you played Zillion mid and lost a couple early kills to Karthus. Reginald looked like he was playing very aggressively. Was the Zillion kind of a counterpick to his Karthus, or what was your strategy and your thoughts going into that?
We kind of just assumed that Zillion would do well against Karthus, but it's not a matchup I've played much. And it turns out that like pre-4 and the real issue, I guess, is Reginald ended up taking rates and ended up with a large experience lead. So he ended up hitting 2 about half a creep camp earlier than me, and ended up harassing quite a bit more than I expected him to. So when he finally flashed in at level 3 to trade with me, I thought he would get creep aggro with that trade. It turns out that like he didn't actually auto me during that entire exchange, so none of the creeps actually went on him, and I ended up having because I flashed in to try to like dodge his Qs. I didn't even need to do that. Like he missed like the first 2 Qs immediately. I knew if he hit the 3rd or 4th, I'd be dead anyways. So I could have just disengaged from that fight, but I ended up trying to play it off, and you can't afford to give mistakes like that against a super hyper carrier like Karthus. And I don't know, I played it really badly, and it's disappointing, I guess.
When you were going into your matches against TSM, as you planned for them, what strategies did you have in mind as you came into the match? Was there anyone in particular that you were looking to kind of pick against and keep down? What did you discuss as a team beforehand?
We really didn't want to give them Yorick because we've played against a lot of Yorick team comps, and Yorick's really fine in senses where there's APs, ADs, but when you combine Yorick with an AP caster, it gets kind of ridiculous. Like a Yorick with a strong AP caster like Cassiopeia or Karthus can just make your day really, really bad, especially if either of those two get farmed. We wanted to pick very, very early pick an AP caster to see if it would work out, and so that's why we ended up first picking Karthus the first game, and honestly, it wasn't an awful pick. Like, I had no trouble against Cassidy. The real big issue was that like I ended up getting camp mid a lot by the jungler, and that's something that like you need to get up earlier wards to deal with, and it's something that I really didn't do much this game. Like I thought I played really underwhelming this series and this tournament in general, and so that's just something to keep in mind for later tournaments.
What do you think caused you to not play up to your own expectations, if anything, and how are you going to fix that in the future?
It's really just like none of us knew matchups going into the here because like patch changes went through, and since we're a team that has 4 players in school, we can't really practice much. So I know TSM has like a gaming house now, so they practice 24 hours, not 24 hours, maybe like 16 hours a day, whether it's through solo queue or through scrims, and that's a luxury that that's not available to us. And we've gone through it, and we usually beat teams with like by being prepared, and so we have like a lot less games played in general, but we're usually more prepared when we go into tournaments and go into matches. And it just so happens that we weren't really prepared for any matchups this tournament. We always had to ask whether or not we could do like a certain matchup in lane, and no one really knew a very good answer to it. And that's never really happened before. Like we used to know like, okay, well this beats this in lane and this beats this in lane, and when we have questions like that, we revert back to just like really safe picks, and a lot of times safe picks aren't good choices because they're safe for a reason, and they don't give you a lot of pressure in the map or pressure in the lanes at all. So it just turned out that we weren't as prepared as we should have been, and like myself, like I've just been losing my lane a lot, and that's usually never happened before because it's just something that never happened before, and I feel like my mechanical skills have gotten a little bit rusty, and so I'm gonna have to I just think more scrims would help our team a lot more. And we ended up only scrimming, I think, 7 times before this tournament in the 2 weeks following, just because everyone had finals and tests to take and just was overall very busy. And it really came back and haunted us in the end, and I really regret that. I don't really regret that. I'm just disappointed in our exit. And I'm really sad we didn't take at least 1 game from TSM or EG.
So for Dignitas' future, now that you guys are kind of over your student finals period and maybe have some kind of Christmas vacation to practice up, are you expecting to do well and qualify for IEM Kiev? And what kind of future do you have in that?
Well, Kiev is in
January.
Yeah. Kiev is in January, but the second qualifier is this weekend. The problem is JAT is unavailable till Friday, so we can't even practice till then. I have 3 tests on Tuesday, or I have like a couple tests on Tuesday. And I know the rest of my team has a lot of exams because our semester isn't over till 2 weeks, and so we have a lot of stuff coming up. And I know that's gonna be rough, so we're gonna only be able to scrim really Friday, I think, and it's gonna be hard. Since we kind of blew the first qualifier because a random bird flew into JAT's power line and really screwed over that's like the first round. And there'll still be a lot of really good teams here, and I think we can go through to at least the top 8 teams to the final qualifier. But and if we get there, qualify for that is like after WCG, so we'll get a lot more practice in. But for this next qualifier, it might be a little bit hard for us. WCG will be coming up in 2 weeks, and I think we should do well there. Because we will start being able to, because we focused on a lot of like what we did wrong in this tournament, and we can pretty much pinpoint like areas where we're like, oh, this sucks, like we don't have any picks to beat like this, and this, and that's something we can work on in the next 2 weeks. Even if our team isn't available, we can like solo queue with it, and we can just learn the matchups and stuff. So I think WCG won't be too bad, but yeah, I'm kind of worried about the KF qualifiers for now.
Which teams at WCG are you particularly nervous about, or do you think that you need to prepare for, at a top level?
We used to scrim a lot with McNoon's team. So the South Korean team that's qualified is very, 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 very good, and we haven't scrimmed with them in about a couple months. But we all knew they were really good, and so they're one of the teams I'm worried about. Whatchamacallit, IG, which is now a new sponsor that I forgot, I think it's Mikako Tabe's team. They're a Hong Kong team, Mikako Tabe and Waidez. They used to play under the tag IG. They used to play in the American servers, and they were a team that we thought would go places. It's just that they were really strong individually, but there were like a couple teammates that weren't like mechanically skilled enough to follow them, and so they were the only Hong Kong team available in the U.S. and go for laws, and then they just disappeared for a bit. They came back and they won the Chinese bid, which is that's really, really good, because we thought eHome would take it, or even like we would take it, but it turns out like they smashed them 3-0 or something. So we're I'm kind of worried about that. And then CDE obviously is composed of, I'd say, they're composed of really good players. Yeah, and like we've had problems with them in the past, and obviously a lot of controversy passed over whether or not like when we beat them or when they beat us, and they'll be a strong team going in. Those are probably the 3 teams I'm most worried about. The main reason I don't say any European teams is because I've been told that a lot of them broke up, and so because it's based by country, so a lot of the European teams are in between 3 or 4 countries, and so their main rosters are very weird, and I'm not sure what teams are good, what teams are bad. It's just hard for me to get a grip on like the European scene, and so I only know like those 3 specific teams are teams I would not want to fight in the first round at WCG.
Yeah, it sounds to me like with these teams you may not have seen in a while, or they may be entirely new, are composed of a random assortment of players from one European country, that probably your focus is going to be more on creating a strong lineup for yourselves rather than, say, counterpicking another team. Is that more what you're looking to do?
I think, like, in every ban and pick phase, you always look to counterpick, because that's just something that's inherently, like, is what you want to look for, because you look for advantages when you're doing the ban pick phase. And more experienced teams are the teams you want to look out for, because they're the teams that know how to ban and pick. We tried something out this tournament where we tried to pick for AP carries first to see, even with a counter available on the board, just to see what they would do with it. And it actually worked out okay-ish, but it's something that we probably won't be, I don't know, it'll be something that we'll try to stay away from later. I still feel like, I don't know, I still feel like a lot of teams don't understand how to ban and pick correctly, and I think it's just something that will develop as teams get better. Like, even I don't think our team understands how to ban and pick correctly in every instance. Like, the times where we were like phenomenal at bans and picks were like areas where like we would just absolutely crush the game. Like, the last time I can think of, or one of the examples is like we played CLG in the New York qualifiers, and then one that they didn't actually qualify in, and that one game we played against them was like a 20-minute surrender, or like an 18-minute win, with like the score being 16-3, and we just outpicked them in every stage of that ban and pick phase, and it was like I could like just going into that game, I was like, we're gonna win this, completely crush this game. There's no chance we will ever lose unless like all the lanes feed O2, and it just turned out fantastic. And I'm like, it's been a while since we've had that kind of like, man, wow, like we picked really well. Like in the second game, while we finished our picks, and I was thinking, I was like, we screwed up. Like we definitely screwed up. We picked Scarra early, and we knew Trundle would be top. We knew that's what it was good in game 1, and in game 2 we were like, they're gonna pick Trundle again, and we're fine. We were fine with that. Like there's options. Like Trundle just tanky. He doesn't do much damage. He's just a tanky initiator, and we were like, okay, so what can we do against this? And Boy didn't really know the matchup, and none of us did either, because we're not really experienced with Trundle top, and so we kind of knew what would work, and it's just they banned out Akali, so we had some other options. But we were like, Scarra could top, but we wanted to jungle him. And so Udyr was still up, and we didn't want to run Udyr against Karthus, because you don't want to run too many melees against Karthus, because even if you kill Karthus, he's going to crush your team. But we had another option for the jungle. We could have had Scarra top, and we could have had Rammus jungle, and if we had that, we would have had a lot more lane presence in the form of like map control through jungler like presence on the map. And right after we picked, I was like, why didn't we do this? And everyone looks at me and there's like, we should have done that. Like if we had done that, we would have arguably won the game.
You think you should have picked Rammus even though you knew Trundle was going to be laning top?
We would have picked Rammus for jungle and switched Skarner over to top lane. And we know the matchup for Skarner is fine in that instance, and it's like that gives us a lot more CC, and how like our ability to initiate against Trundle is kind of lacking. But with Rammus, like you have a lot more initiation ability. Like I thought Skarner did pretty underwhelming because like there's not much you can do against Karthus without forcing flash, and I think Jat's pretty inexperienced on Skarner. It's not really his fault. It's just something we haven't played him at scrims with, and yeah, I don't know. We should have banned the pick better, and it really it's one of the main reasons we lost.
It's unfortunate. Well, anyway, that about wraps it up here. Thank you so much, Scarra. I really hope Dignitas does well at WCG and that you can qualify for IEM Kiev. I think you guys will do fine. But this is Monte Cristo for ggChronicle. Thanks a lot.